6:01 p.m. I'd ask Commissioner Eaton if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any disclosures or declarations? No. Okay. Takes us to the agenda. There's a couple of changes we're going to make to the agenda. Business item F2, the nightly rentals and commercial zones, will not have a public hearing tonight and it will not be discussed. The reason for that is we haven't got back the draft ordinance from conflict counsel, so we really don't have anything to look at and we haven't seen it. So if you're here tonight for that public hearing, it should be on the next meeting, which is on December 14th. Just take a look at the Tocqueville website and see if you can look at the agenda and make sure it's on there. Business item F3, we don't have a general plan ready for us to discuss. However, we do have Sunrise Engineering here tonight to give us an update on where we're at on that. So for business item F3, we will be doing that as business item F2, and they will do a presentation. We'll have a public hearing on that as well. Does that work? All right, so we need to make an amendment to the agenda.
On both of those items?
On both of those items. So we're going to move F2. We're just going to not table it, but it's going to be on next month's agenda. And then F3 will not be, we won't be making a recommendation.
But we will have a discussion.
But we will have a discussion and a public hearing.
Okay, I move that we change the agenda. Amend the agenda and move F2 of the business item to next month, December 14th, did you say? And that we move F3, or no, that we go ahead with the discussion and the public hearing on F3, but we will not have a possible recommendation to the city council at this time.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moves us on to review of the minutes. I heard that the minutes were not prepared or ready for this meeting, so we will be also doing the minutes on next month's meeting. Okay. So this moves us to our public forum. We will now open up the public forum. If anyone would like to participate, please stand or step up to the microphone. Please, 3 minutes, and state your name and address, please.
Joey Campbell, 604 South Westfield Road. Afton said that I have to officially resign my seat. So officially resign my planning commission chair, so I can move to city council. Okay. But what I did want to do is tell everybody, thank you very much. So over the last year, especially, we had Afton come aboard. That changed everything. Like everything got easier and easier. And then when Darren came on, man, my life got 10 times simpler. As far as like packages, all the details and all the information that we got given, it was like awesome. I think you guys are going to do an amazing job. You guys are really, really good people. And it was awesome to work with you guys. So I really wanted to tell you that. And then don't be afraid to reach out though. If you have questions on past events, code, whatever, call me anytime. And then one of the things I really want to work on while I am in the council is to try to get some communications opened up between planning commission and council. So some of the motions that we made during them times that didn't quite get there, some of the information that we made available to city council, I want to see if I can help get that fixed up. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Do we have to let you go?
Yeah,
You said we could reach out. Come on back, Joey. Come on.
anybody else?
You never got to work, huh?
Amanda?
Yeah, Kathleen Lee, Tokerville Heights, 1579 South Tokerville. So I don't want you guys to get concerned because I'm not here to talk about the rental property for commercial use, but I did want to talk about the nightly rental ordinance. And I just wanted to kind of run some things by you guys. I've already reached out to several city council members and Afton, just to kind of get some feedback. But I want to make sure that we're doing like I understand what we're trying to accomplish in our community. Like we wanted to do a nightly rental. I came in March and, I'm like, how hard could it be? Just fill out the form. It's so hard. It's like trying to like bend over and lick your own back. I'm like, why do I have to do all this stuff? And then I know that we were in the middle of trying to amend that and making some changes. And I did read, and I have it printed out here. Thank you, Darren. I have it printed out, and I just made a couple of notes on here, but specifically so that you guys can be more prepared to discuss this in the future. Like in Ordinance 1C, and I know I didn't print this out for any of you, but if you can kind of dig back, clear back in August when, this was under the discussion, it does say within and under one roof of a dwelling and accessory structures can create multifamily zoning, and it carries on and on and on in that direction. So with that being said, I'm wondering, what is it that we're trying to accomplish with that? And there's a couple of, obviously I have a couple notes. So there's a couple of other things on there that I don't understand why they're in there and what it is that we want to do with that. Like what is it that we want our community to look like, or what is it that we're trying to avoid with some of the things that were put in here? So I have several suggestions of maybe how we could tackle that. My husband's a general contractor, and we built lots of homes and lots of communities, and it would be nice to see how can we still work together in the community, and people here that have nightly rentals, how can we get them on board with actually getting permitting in a way that makes sense for everybody, so that people in the community just don't feel like, oh my gosh, the city's just asking for all this money, or several of the things that I've heard from talking to other community members, they're just like, oh, they just want to nickel and dime people. There must be a purpose. I don't think that it's just there for just because. So I just wanted to see if I could somehow streamline that, and maybe we could get something in place before next planning meeting so I can get on that agenda.
Anybody else? Okay, I will take a motion to close the public forum.
I motion we close the public forum.
I'll second.
Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, this takes us to the report section. I don't have anything to report other than I would like to congratulate Joey Campbell on his promotion. And thank you publicly for all your hard work and dedication. You're definitely going to be missed on the planning commission.
I would like to second that, and we are going to miss you a ton. You've done such a great job, but thank you.
Any other commissioners have any
Yeah.
reports?
Staff, good job. That's one complete package. I love it.
That is nice.
That was so,
You're
that,
right, though.
that was so
You're right.
good. That was good. Thank you.
Darren, have you got anything to add? Reports?
Just so you know, we'll be having a discussion here at the end, to talk about our RV ordinance. So I've got in your packets, there's some things that I can just go over and then you guys might use based on our conversation with my planning commission. You guys get a direction and to make a couple of changes in the existing form, but there, I took that assignment and I met with a few people. That's what I like to discuss with my findings on it and kind of go from there and see what your direction is for the next planning commission in December.
Yeah.
And that's really legit. You pretty much already know about the cancel edition.
Yeah. Okay, all right. That will take us to business items. Business item F1, which is discussion on nightly rental application submitted by Brad Halo. Hello, okay, I'm sorry, thank you. His, the application is for the property that is adjacent to the driveway that goes into Diamond G. And I will read staff comments here on that. Somebody got those by chance.
Oh, you want staff comments? I got it.
Staff comments on that. I had it in order, but now I've got it all.
I did. I switched mine around too. Right here.
Oh, here it is. I got it. Thank you. Okay, so staff comments. The JUC meeting will be held on November 9th for this application. Staff will provide comments to the planning commission. Did that happen? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry.
JUC meeting held on November 9th.
Okay, yeah, that was today.
Yeah, so that happened, right?
So it's essentially on the nightly rental for Philip.
Yes.
For Brad, or Bruce?
Brad.
Brad. There was no comments from any of the
Okay,
the
Okay.
JC members at all.
all right, so we won't need to add anything to
Yeah,
that.
no, nothing to add, and that just happened this morning.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna-
The application submitted is complete as per nightly rental permit and code 10.17.3. The applicant will need to comply with Tokerville City Code 10.17.3. The applicant will need to obtain a city business license if the planning commission and the city council approve this application. No more comments from, okay. Would the applicant like to make some comments?
Our family moved to the city a year ago. This is the old Steve Gilbert home up on Topher Boulevard. And we've invested over the last year to renovate it, modernize it. We have 12 children ourselves. We're down to just one child at home, a 15-year-old. And the purpose of the home is really as a gathering home for our family, for family reunions, Thanksgiving, but most of the year it's pretty vacant, my wife and I and daughter. So we just want to put it to good use and let other people share it with us. And we did nightly rentals for just a period of time when we were living up in Midway, Utah. And we enjoyed getting to know other families that came to share our home with us. And we'll be here in your community, we hope, for a long time and want to be good neighbors. But with a home of this size, we just thought it'd be great to share it. It has facilities that are adequate for us to be in part of the home while also sharing it with others. So that's all I have to say.
Any of the commissioners have questions?
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
is the casita It is attached. Is
Yes.
that where the nightly rental will occur?
Mhm. Yep.
Not in the main home?
If we were to rent the main home, it would just be for, say, a family that we knew where we felt comfortable moving temporarily to the casita. We live in the main home. So the purpose is really to share the casitas, but there might be an occasion. My daughter-in-law's family just did their family reunion at the home. And so for 3 days, we went over to the casita to just give them the larger home.
You would not, if it's family members, you would not do that.
That would be in this main home, or
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and we've only had family using it to this point. So the only reason we're applying is in the event that we decide to actually put it on Airbnb or something, it would be the casitas primarily, but we may make the main home available. Again, we're living in it, but require us to temporarily go to the casita.
One condition, maybe that off of that, which is process.
Mhm.
On the actual application, it talks about the no more than 10 occupants. So it
Yeah.
couldn't be rented out to
30 people,
30
yeah.
30 people.
And we are aware of that.
Just one other thought on that is, if you have the casita set up for the fire department comes out and inspects that, they look for all the fire extinguishers, exits, all that kind of stuff, which is the casita. But if you were to do that for the main home, you would have to have all of those things in place in that as well.
Okay.
Exits and all of those things. So if you're looking to do the whole property, you're gonna have to make sure it's all included in that fire inspection and all that.
If we have the permit from the city and we just start off with the casita and have that inspected, if we later decide to add the home, is it just another inspection or do we have to come back through the process?
You'd be expanding upon your capacity.
Okay, so what we'd probably do is just do it all right now, just to make sure we don't have to redo the process.
And the biggest thing I see there is just making sure that you can see the channel.
Okay, any other questions?
I do.
You?
Yeah. So staff can help me out. I don't see anywhere where a nightly rental is permitted in A1 agriculture.
But it's not permitted anywhere. It's not even- you can't find it in the-
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
It's not a conditional use. The city council got rid of that years ago. It's a permit. It's permitted in every zone we have. It's industrial, and we have it.
I couldn't find that.
So you're right. It's not permitted or conditional use. In any zone, it is a permit. And get it that way for a reason. That's not people outside this, but we won't talk about that.
Permit is different than a permitted use, is what you're telling me.
Conditional use.
Well, it's not a conditional use. It's not,
Or permitted use, right. It is not. It's permitted in every zone.
so it supersedes the permitted uses.
Conditional use. Or permitted use, yes, it does.
Yeah, I can't find that. But it's somewhere written.
It's just in the, when they adopted the, night rental ordinance. And the night rental ordinance is.
Okay, okay.
He was talking to me, I had the same question, it was very confusing when I started working here. And I asked him about that, he said when the city council did this about 5 or 6 years ago, right after, and, they did the permit, and it was by permit, not.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not by ordinance, by,
I spent 3 hours looking for that thing. I'd like to find it, but
I actually did too. I'm just, when you told me, trying to find it.
yeah. So,
yeah,
Okay.
You're right, that's the way.
That's the way it is.
That's the way the city council established it. So,
I think it looks good. And again, this is a very well put together application on both parties.
Okay, anything else? Any more questions? Okay, you can sit down, thank you. I'm going to open this up to the public hearing on this item. Public input is sought on nightly rental application submitted by Brad Powell. Tax ID number T127-A-2. Current zoning is agricultural A1. If anybody would like to speak, please limit it to 3 minutes. Nobody? Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close public hearing. Aye.
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 Okay. Planning Commission recommendation.
I make a motion, we approve.
I got a motion.
I second.
Motion in a second.
Aye.
Vote.
Aye.
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 Whoops. I guess we did that.
Oh, with staff
With
comments.
staff comments.
With staff comments.
I can amend it. Okay, will you amend the motion, please?
Well, I can make a brand new motion. I make a motion, we approve the nightly rental for Brad Pello, tax ID T127-A-2 with staff comments.
Which include the 10 occupants and the whole home.
That's all in 1017-3.
Yeah, but we added that. That's right.
Okay, second.
Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay. Our next business item will be a presentation. I'm gonna have to get more organized with this. I don't know where my- Okay, yes.
Look at that there.
Okay, general, or we'll do a discussion on the Tocqueville City Plan amendment. We'll do a public hearing on this now. Well, actually, we gotta have the presentation first. So if I could get Sunrise Engineering to step up and give us a presentation on this.
I'm not going to touch this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brad Robbins. I'm with Sunrise Engineering. I also have with me behind me is Daniel Jensen. He's a senior planner with Sunrise Engineering. He's going to be the primary contact going forward in regard to your general plan update as we proceed. What I want to do is just give you a quick status as to where we're at. We were contracted to do both a general plan update and an annexation policy plan. We did put together that survey that you have up there, and I'm glad you were able to put that up there because I didn't bring the little thing that goes with it. Now, we had been waiting a few months in order to have all the contractual things signed, and I understand that happened today. So we're now ready to go, and we'll continue to proceed through the process to get you to the end of that. It's going to take probably another 3 or 4 months to get to that point. But up to the time before we stopped, we did do this survey. And I'd like to take a few minutes to kind of walk through some of the major issues in regard to that survey. So to start with, you had 115 responses to the survey. You got a population of, I think, about 1,500, somewhere in that range. That's a little bit low for that type of population, but as a whole, it's not too bad. Of those, 100. Okay.
So that could be part of the problem.
Okay. In regard to the people who did respond, we had 112 that did respond with full-time residents. That's 94%. The people that own property here, residential property, 76% of those people did respond. And then 23% of the people lived in Tocqueville for more than 20 years, which is a pretty good response in regard to that. The reasons why people live in Tocqueville, number one, and this was 98% of the respondents, they like the quiet community that you have. The number two was the small town atmosphere. That was 96%. That's it right there. And number three, answer was the people like the open space, and that was 89% of the respondents. Next page. This is kind of grouped into different type of groupings, so I'm going to start with the land use. In regard to providing for new commercial development, people want to see it adjacent to Anderson Junction and out in that area. That was 67% supported. The number 3 top answer in land use was that people want to see the agricultural land preserved, and that was 87% of the respondents. In regard to residential development, half-acre size lots or larger was supported by 87% of the respondents. And you know what? That's typical for a community your size. Some of the smaller communities I work with, it's like an acre. People like the larger lots. It's just what it is. In regard to heavy manufacturing, warehouses, those type of things, 75 and 76% of the people do not want it in your town. You talked about short-term rentals a little bit. 73% of the people here want you to continue to regulate short-term rentals. In regard to open space, 93% of respondents want you to preserve your open space that you have and establish more if that's possible. And then the number 2 answer here, which is at 88% of the people want you to preserve the rural character of the city. That is a very typical response for a community your size. Everywhere I go, it's the same. They want to keep that rural feel that you have. And you guys have a really cute town here. I actually live in Leeds, so I go through all the time. And you've done a really nice job, and I can see why people want to keep that. The next section has to do with housing and maintenance. And generally, I'm just going to hit on one here. It's 75% of the respondents want you to enforce standards for unkept properties. It's another fairly typical one. The problem with most small communities, and you guys actually have a staff, is that they don't have staff. So you got the ability to do some stuff that other folks don't have. In regard to infrastructure, the respondents want you to support road pavement projects and infrastructure, provide street lighting when and where possible, continue to work with UDOT to provide for greater improvements to Highway 17, continue to support water conservation initiatives, and support bike routes and trails. And that varies, but 70–80% of the respondents want you to continue to do that type of thing. In regard to the environment and recreation, the number 1 answer here was that there's a lot of support, 94%, to continue to improve the city's existing parks. Ridge lines, hilltops, streams, plateaus, they want that stuff protected from development. That's 84% of the respondents. Support historic preservation. You guys have got some great historic stuff here in town. I think you know that. 92% of the people that responded want you to continue to support that and maintain that. In regard to economic development, this is always kind of an interesting question. The question was, do not promote the city as any type of destination. 68% of the people responded, do not want you to do anything that makes this a destination location. And then provide incentives for fee waivers for commercial industrial development. 76% of the people don't want you to do that. Again, that's fairly typical. And that's kind of in a nutshell, the survey. Now, there's a lot more to it, as you can see. I did provide a link a month or 2 ago to your staff. You can go in there and actually touch on the different things here. It'll tell you the exact percentages as to what that is. But in a nutshell, this is kind of where you're at. I found your survey. This is the 5th one I've done so far. I found yours to be typical of all the others I've done. You're a small rural community. People like it here because of that, and they want to preserve that for as long as they possibly can. So that's your survey. Now, going forward, Daniel's going to start writing this document, putting together what they call elements, which are essentially chapters in a general plan. And he'll be working with your staff, and we'll be back here to report on that when we get it all together. Are there any questions that you may have?
Yeah. So what was your chain of custody on this survey, and how long has this been out, and who's all seen it?
First of all, let me state that Sunrise Engineering, we are not professional survey takers. Okay. There's been a lot of questions. Are you tracking IP addresses and all that kind of stuff? And the answer is no. Generally, we do not. I think we have the ability to find out if people are doing like multiples. But what I have found, like this, for example, you're right in line with any other rural community. There's nothing out of the ordinary that kind of stands out. So I don't think there's any kind of monkey business that had been going on with the survey. The survey actually started, I think it was in June, mid-June, something like that. We started, and then it was supposed to end like mid-July, and the staff wanted to extend it to allow people a little bit more time. I think it went to somewhere around August 10th or something like that. And then we shut off the survey at that time.
So what he's going to write up is going to reflect what this says.
What he's going to write up is going to have the elements of all reflected in that, correct?
Percentages and
Well, now we're not getting into percentages. This will be an attachment in the back of the document itself. So anybody can go in there and kind of see where that came from. What we kind of look forward, what we try to do is come up with the themes that are associated with this. I mean, and obviously you kind of hit on it, you know, people like large lots. Okay, well, that's a major theme in land use. Nobody wants industrial or batch plants or those type of things. Yeah, those kind of things. We come up with, and general plan, just to kind of explain what that is a little bit. A general plan is just what it says. It's general. You're not going to get specific type of requirements in a general plan. That comes from your zoning ordinance. So the general plan is your base document. Your zoning ordinance implements your general plan. But it gives you a guide for the future, and that's what it's supposed to do. And it's a guide you should update every 5 years and stay involved with as you go. And you can amend it whenever you want to as things change. And I know that this town just had one done, I think, in 2017, which you're having another one done now, but you've had a lot of change too. So it's probably a good idea that you do that, and we reflect exactly what's here. And, you know, Daniel and myself will be talking to you to make sure that this reflects your community, because that's what the state wants you to do. They want this to be a reflection of what you are as a community.
So were you guys going to then go through our ordinances also and say, you might need to be looking at this ordinance and that, or is that what we do?
No, we're gonna say you probably need to do that type of stuff.
This is changing the general.
Yeah. Most communities, once they do the general plan, they realize they've got to update their ordinances too. And then that's kind of the next step in the process. But you know, it's not going to be that specific. We're just going to say, you probably need to look at your ordinance and you know, make some corrections there.
Do this or do that. And
Yeah.
we're already, then we need to change those.
Exactly.
because these general plans have recommendations to our codes. They're recommending. So in your opinion, being how you've done 5 of these, the general plan is general guidelines, and those guidelines are being developed by the public, because that's how you got this information. Is that correct?
They're being guided by the public. We will develop the comments. See, the way it's kind of set up. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Majority of what we could get with
Yeah.
desire.
And what, okay, let's step back a little bit. We did the survey, and that the public is telling us this is what they want. But if you, as a planning commission and the city council, say that's not what we want, we're still going to put in there what the survey results are, but we have to do what we're told as a consultant.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just laying that out there that now I haven't seen that happen. I've never seen it. Well, and understand this, right? In state code, it says that a general plan is an advisory document. Advisory means you don't have to follow everything in it. Now, the state wants you to, pardon me?
Has to be followed.
No, not in a general plan. No, it's advisory. It's just saying it. Well, that's your ordinance.
Turned out, 115 is pretty good. Pretty good.
I have a question.
Yes.
I did not get a survey, which is kind of funny because I'm on the planning commission, right? Didn't even know about it. They were mailed out, a lot of them?
I'll let the staff.
We did this in 4 ways. We were only required to put it on our website. We put it on our website, we put it on our utility billing. We mailed one to every single property owner in all those utility billing. We included a paper copy of the survey and a self-addressed
I don't either.
Or we could have emailed it too.
There was an email.
Yeah, because I think I did mine on email.
Yeah, so we did this like, yeah, the only was required is put it, just like.
Yeah, yeah.
So we took, yeah, we did it 5 different ways. to make sure that we-
Interesting.
I'm just curious. on-
If you didn't receive the one by mail, because it got lost in the mail, or, you know, straight email from the server. But you still have 4 other ways to know that it's happening. Sometimes, you know, some people will get told that for sure, that I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. You know, that's.
Yeah.
The citizens, we gotta be, I ask all citizens, please be involved.
Yeah.
You know, look at your, look at the website, because it was there, it was on our website.
Yeah, we did a QR
I don't-
code,
I don't know
we did
anything.
scans or something.
I thought that was well done in a lot of time. Because somebody like me caught it and yeah, it was plenty of,
Yeah,
plenty of opportunity, but
Yeah, that's probably, I don't miss, I guess I need to get better. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind, no.
So how many residents do we have and how many would we expect to get back? Did you see something like where it didn't look like we got a good response?
No, not really. I mean, every town's different. Every town participates differently. So, yeah, you've got a good sample of what the town feels like. And
Off the top of your head.
1,600.
Building, how many?
I think we got a good percentage because looking at all the polls from yesterday, some of those voting percentages are 19%, 20%.
Yeah.
All are out for votes.
Well, you know, every community is different. Like I'm doing Orderville, and they're about done. They actually knocked on people's door and gave it to them because they wanted everybody to do it. Well, that's kind of impossible for a lot of communities because you got 800 homes, you got a couple staff members. You're not going to be doing that kind of stuff. So a lot of it comes down to the community and how they want to respond. So.
When do you think you'll have this complete?
My guess is probably 3 to 4 months. We'll be back in front of you, and it comes down to Daniel's schedule. I think that's a fair amount of time to put it all together because we've got to do a couple things. We got to write it, we've got to transmit it to UDOT, and try to get comments back from them if that's possible. We got to give it to our transportation people. So just kind of coordinating all that. It's probably going to be about 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
It's not just gonna come back to you in the form.
Yeah.
We're gonna, people can,
There'll be an open house.
There's another opportunity for people beyond the survey to come in and put their input in. There's multiple times throughout this whole process to get comments from the community. And
There is no question about it. We do want the community to give
Yeah,
their
for sure.
input. So this is not something that we just want. We really, really do, people that are watching,
Yes.
we really want their input.
And I got one other question. Do you have a copy of our previous one, the previous?
I read it. Yeah, I read it. I think it was online.
I'm curious if you saw anything significantly change from then to now.
We do a little different style than what they did, and I don't really want to.
Saying as far as what the people wanted.
Yeah, Yeah. Ours is going to be more concise when it comes right down to it. And Afton kind of, I did the one in Leeds, and Afton looked at that one. Yeah, she kind of liked the style and format, so we're still doing that same thing. And
It's very user friendly and it's simple to interpret. That is, yeah. It's great.
But once we get it to that point, if you guys have comments or changes, we do all that stuff. It's not, we're not married to any of this, so it needs to reflect what you want to reflect. And I don't know if that happened on your last one or not, but this one that's our goal to make sure that that's the case.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? Okay.
Appreciate that.
Public input is sought on the Tocqueville City General Plan Amendment. Anybody would like to make comment on that? Or questions or anything? Okay. none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on
F3.
business item
General plan.
F3, general plan amendment.
I second it.
Take a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Right.
Okay, that will conclude our business items. Next thing. Also RV ordinance.
Okay, what happened since the last time I got involved in this?
So
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if Wayne was here was you here at our last planning commission meeting? So let me just kind of go over what we talked about in our last meeting with Joey was chair. We discussed the RV park because of some of the things that we're finding out with the existing one that's being built right now. And as we're continuing to get down that line, I'm getting a lot more knowledge of things we need to look at and have in our RV ordinance. So the big thing that we talked about last time was item F, as you see the 14, it was 16. So it was a density. We talked about changing the density per acre overall based on your overall acreage. And then also, I think it was Val that, or somebody talked about that we should remove the park models and the park trailers, things such as that. And then also on item I was to change that from the cabins to be only 10% of the total RV units. And so that was the three things that we came out of that meeting, essentially is changing. And then we also we talked a little bit about with me going back and trying to find some sort of a coherence or some sort of consistency of the business license. And we talked about, does there need to be a business license for the cabins? It was kind of generally discussed. And as I've talked with other cities in the southern Utah, it's basically there's one business license. It's for the RV park. We still receive the transient room tax, the same, the different things like that. In your packets, I included, and I mostly just wanted you guys to kind of have this outlook of it, but I talked with the Ivan city engineer, Chuck Gillette, and he says, please go in and take a look at this and see what we've done, because they've learned from this. We also talked about definitions. I think definitions as they have it in theirs are so important because it defines what a cabin is. Because on our one that we have right now, they come in, we didn't really have a definition of what a cabin was. We thought everybody thinks of a cabin as, you might think of it as one thing. I think of it as a different thing. Somebody else thinks of it a different. Yeah. And that's this one right here that you have. And so it defines what a cabin is. It defines what a person is, RV resort, a site, and what a RV unit is, those different types of things. So I kind of wanted you guys to review that. I am going to kind of implement some of this into our existing, and it's going to be a completely different draft, but we do need to kind of get into this. And then the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting is they have in theirs is a 7.5 density per acre rather than 14, which I thought, So I kind of looking with that. I've got an actual meeting tomorrow with Hurricane and Springdale's planning directors. We're going to sit down and go over each one of theirs and talk about theirs, because Hurricane just did 2 brand new ones in the last couple of years, and they've got a third one coming online that's being built right now. And to find out the pros and cons of when things come, when we give them final CO type of thing, how many do they have to have all the amenities? And that's one thing that Chuck Gillette talked about. He says, in your RV ordinance, you ought to talk about the amenities because it helps. You ought to talk about the screening. Now, in our site plan for a commercial site, we talk about that, but he says he thought it was pretty good to put it inside your ordinance and make it so that it is coherent, and so that it's the documents, so you're not conflicting your site design with this, but he says just put it in here so that people can see it's there.
and they've done that in theirs. One thing that I think is really, because they talk about a traffic impact study, which we don't have that in ours. I think that's a really great idea, even if it's a low level traffic impact, because if they've got 200 units, they also talk about a minimum acreage, which we don't. They talk about 20 acres minimum on an RV park, because he said some of them, he said in the past they've had people come in with 5 acres and that gave them like 6 or 7 stalls and it just died, and then it sat there for years and looked like garbage. He said, so anyway, I've got some of those, the hydrology report. So these are some of the things that hydrology report, a geotech report, preliminary title report. These are things that we ask for in our site plan, but it would be nice to have it in there, and so that it's parallel to our ordinance, so we don't have conflicting deals, ordinances there. So the other things that I thought were really kind of that I liked about, and in your copies, I've kind of highlighted these things. And if there's something else in here that you guys think are important, please get with me during next month and let's get it into our draft version of changing some things here in our ordinance, because we start talking, I think the amenities, the definitions, and these things that I've got highlighted are something that I'd like to put it into our next draft. And then we start talking about it next month with the red lines and kind of going through a work meeting type of a scenario there and sit down and hash that out of removing different types of things, if you guys are okay with that. And like I said, the last thing, here was the 7.5 RVs in the next one. Yeah, right there for the usable areas. Yeah. And I'm going to go, I've actually got an appointment next week to go sit down with the guy who got the one there behind the desert. I think it was the Vet in Hurricane. They put that RV park there because they came in and they were failing miserably. When I was on staff there, they were trying to do this little tiny thing. And then they finally just got an investor and came in and did a full on RV park. And they said it's yeah. So we're kind of, and that's what I'm going to talk to Hurricanes planner and Springdale's tomorrow. We've got an appointment to sit down and go over this. So
I think they need beautification myself a little bit.
yeah, and in here it talks about screening, such as a block wall that's not necessarily your ugly gray block wall, but then it also talks about a tree every 30 feet. These other things that help screen. And then we don't have anything that addresses any type of tent sites in ours, if that's where we want to go. Do we want to allow that? If not, then we won't. But, and then as we get it to a place, we'll go to a public hearing and we'll get public input as well.
So when I looked at our ordinance that we were working on, and I was trying to institute some of these changes in it, what I realized is we probably ought to just throw away what we were working on.
Well,
Go with this, 'cause
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't throw everything away because we've spent some good time on it.
What I'm going to say though is I found everything that was in that ordinance that we were working on, I can find in this ordinance.
Super easy.
Well, it's the same info, just numbers are changed.
Yeah.
And things like that.
You're right.
So I don't know. I went through the whole document and I saw,
Thank
okay,
you.
we said this is what we needed. I looked where they had the same, it was relating to the same thing. Theirs
Yeah.
was, for example, their space width is 40 feet by 80 feet.
Yeah,
That
and
seems
ours
like a
is,
huge space. And I tried to calculate why, 7.5 from 14 and how those took road widths and effect and everything else.
yeah,
Seems to me like 7.5 might be a little bit too small.
right.
14 seemed okay, so my point is this, is looking at the space widths. I also pulled up national averages, what people recommend, all those kinds of things.
Awesome.
Our space width shows 25 feet. The national recommendation is minimum of 30 feet.
Wow.
Now Ivans is 40 feet. So I don't know if we got to go that big, but we could go 30 feet. for
Here we
sure.
go to the national average, right?
And look at the depth. The depth is on Ivans is 80 feet. We don't have a depth called out on ours.
Right.
I didn't see it in our document. So
And you have two different types of scenarios there. You have pull-throughs compared to back ends, you know.
if we're
So-
looking at having a parking space in front of a 40-foot RV,
Yeah.
and we require a 90 or 9 by 20, that's minimum 60 feet.
Yeah,
So there was a lot of things that I was able to correlate with what we've been working on. So I'm not saying throw it away
right.
completely, but we certainly could take this and put them into here, in my opinion,
Well,
and save a lot of work on
what I would like to do too is, because when we, in our zoning ordinance, we have the diagrams, little drawings in there that shows the setback of this type of thing. And I don't want to design somebody's RV park for them. I just would like to, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. You see a picture on there, and then you have documentation that shows that same thing. And pictures are fairly easy to create. Those diagrams, I've got CAD software that I can do that with very easily. But I think like what you're talking about there is this, and I'm not going to say this is what you have to do, but this is a suggested type of layout type of
it.
thing.
I loved everything.
It's more of a suggestion, but
Comprehensive, and it made more sense, and it had restrictions, and it had things that we didn't think about. I really liked it.
so I would like to, before we meet, I'm going to try and meet with Ivans and Santa Clara's planners as well. I don't know if Ivans has one, do they? It's just Chuck. I think it was just Chuck. So I probably talked to the planner. It was Chuck's kind of like me, except for he is a licensed PE. So
No, I can see where that 40 is coming from though.
Yeah.
Well, so when you mentioned a few meetings ago about how narrow these spaces were, and you'd gone and asked a few people, and they were like 20 feet's minimum. And so when I saw theirs was 40, I was like, wow, that really opens it up. And another one that we've got in our draft is the road width. Single lane is 12 feet. And there, in 12 feet, I'm like, you can't pull a unit into 25 feet and 12 feet and not expect people to hit
hit each other, yeah.
whereas Ivans has it at 20 feet is
Right.
their single lane. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot
Well-
of stuff in there that I thought, wow, that really-
And since we've adopted this, it's a personal thing that I did, but I actually went and stayed in an RV in Moab, and I'll tell you, it was all, the roads were all gravel, and the part where the stalls are and those things were gravel, but they had amenities. We had a table, we had a little fire pit, we had a few things like that. But to put 6 people in an RV, and it said it was past, it would hold 6 people, but you think about, and then they limited it that you can only have 2 cars in that same thing. So, but it would pull through, but it wasn't connected to the vehicle still, obviously, as a rental. But there again, I think we want to put in our ordinance. I don't think we want a third party to be able to come in and buy a bunch of RVs, pull them into that guy's RV park and do nightly rentals out of it that way. So and Ivans has a provision that doesn't allow that, because it comes down and talks about prohibited uses, that type of stuff. So I'm sorry, Daisy, that's on 5.7, but
Well, something else that I saw in there that I thought was important is it talks about dependent versus independent. So if you have an RV that shows up that doesn't have hookups to water, sewer, cities, those
Self-contained.
that there is a site or a service building on site for showers and toilets. And
yeah,
things
that's
like
the last page.
which is typical, but it wasn't in our.
But we hadn't even
And a
thought
dump.
of that.
No,
They have a
we
dump
didn't.
station.
So that,
And then one of our discussion we talked about too was kind of the same thing along the lines of our nightly rental, is the management of this thing. So in here, they've also got that same thing. They've got an RV resort management and the requirements for that. And it's just only 3 paragraphs essentially, or 3 items. But I think that's something we ought to, it feels better to have some things like that. We don't want to be to the point where we're just trying to kill everybody, but we definitely don't want it to be, we want them to be successful, but at the same time, we don't want something that's.
We also want it to reflect nicely at Tokerville.
Correct. We don't want, things that go.
Looking at in front of an RV, you could park 2 vehicles there as opposed to having another area in the park to park one of those vehicles. So
Side by
each
side,
space would
like
have,
this?
yeah, well, so the space is 9 feet, so you need 18 feet to park 2, right?
But you need more than 9 feet.
Your
because you have
RV
slide
is,
outs.
your RV is 8
No,
and
no,
you
no, I'm
have slide
talking,
outs
no,
of
no, no.
15.
I'm talking about if we have our space 30 feet wide,
Yeah.
we can now park 2 vehicles in front of that instead of having additional parking.
This is
around.
limiting to 1 vehicle in front.
Uh,
That
Yeah.
is,
With the new one, okay,
But-
but, so this is my point on that and why I was saying that, is they went from us having another additional space per space that we have in Ivans to 1 per 10 spaces in theirs is what I'm getting at.
We're talking to spaces or are we talking to
So they-
showers?
Parking spaces.
Oh, okay.
You say you have to have 1 parking space for the unit, and
Yeah.
then somewhere else, another additional parking space for every unit in there has to be somewhere else.
See, and that's the way the park that I stayed in, they had over by their clubhouse, they had guest parking that were were additional to, and so they didn't maximize and have cars parked in the alleyways or so they couldn't, because I assume they probably had issues with people renting those nightly rentals out and then having to try and have people pull RVs through there with passenger cars that don't pull RVs or a trailer or anything like that.
So what I envisioned was here's my space. I have my RV right here, and if I'm 30 feet wide, I can now park 2 vehicles in front of that and still have plenty of space and not require all this additional parking everywhere.
Yep.
I can do
You're
1
80
per
foot,
every
and you're 80
10.
foot long, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be long enough for them to be able to.
Because the data shows that most RVs have come with 2 cars. And there'll be a trailer, a tag along behind the motorhome that they don't take off.
Right.
So you pull the motorhome all the way in and you're taking up 8 feet. But you got to pull over here because you're taking up 6 feet on each, or 6 feet on both sides for slides. So you're at 14, you roll out your awning at 8, you're already at 22 feet.
That's why I say 30. I love
So-
30 feet wide.
And if it's 80, they can pull forward enough and the cars can either come in front or the back because they'll detach the car and then you'll have 2 cars running around.
but you want more than just an extra couple of feet, because like you're saying,
With
Darren,
the picnic
you
tables.
got a picnic table, you got a fire pit, blah, blah, blah.
And I kind of like the cool thing when there was they don't allow fire pits, with wood. They have to be a propane or something like that.
Didn't like that because I love doing that. Of course, I'm a motorcycle camper.
Yeah.
But that's usually comes in the tent area.
Yeah, exactly.
The tent area, which is actually really separate from the big fancy motorhome areas.
Well, and we're not trying to accommodate. We're going to leave that up to the RV park owners to accommodate different amenities and things such as that. But we just need to talk about. We don't want to regulate every bit of that.
They're going to regulate themselves, but they won't be in business.
Exactly. So if you guys could take this, if you want, give me a call. Let's set up a meeting. We can sit down and talk on one-on-one basis if you need. And then I'll take your input. I'm going to take the input that I get from those other planners, and then we'll combine it, and then we'll come back together for a kind of a work meeting next planning commission. We'll just come at our next one. I'm not going to say if, because we might have a big agenda next month. Who knows? I don't know. As of right now, you're not. You've got another. So next month on your agendas, you just have you have another nightly rental so far is all, and whatever might come from the nightly rental ordinances. So anyway, if you could do that, I would appreciate it. And let's look forward to talking to that, because we've hit a bunch of things that I think all of us were thinking about. We just couldn't pull it all together, and I think Ivans has already done that. So if we can take something that somebody's already put together, we'll not reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, we definitely want to look at a few other ones. We want some input from other planners and ordinances as well. So any questions other than that?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Darren.
Thank you, guys.
Making our job easy.
Also,
Joey?
so what I think we were doing last time was we were gonna try and clean up that density. So we could have a public hearing on that section. So the first slide that came up, we should probably get that ready for the public hearing, just to update that. Then it gives you all the time to go over and plan to do it. Right, so we did take care of some of the density issues that are in the old, so we did curb it, right? We had
Talking RV ordinance, aren't we?
Supposed to be a public hearing on that.
Oh, I didn't,
So this right here.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah, so this right here, what we need to do is get that, what you guys need to do is get this into draft form, have a public hearing, and get that one cleaned up. Then you guys are gonna have to do those, but we have to currently, change the noise. Yeah, get video, we just cover it. So I would suggest that, just one of the boards. The other thing that is in the items, RV park, right, so RV park is really good, I think. But it's gonna be, you guys are gonna be coinciding with looking at 3 documents. You have site plan requirements, commercial design standards, and RV park. So the last person that submitted for the RV park, they were held to the commercial design standards more pages. So the aprons and everything we're doing along that, the sidewalk, you're turning 10 feet, the landscaping so far, all that should probably be in here. And then staff or someone's gonna have to create an application just for our reports. So we'll eliminate site plan application, we'll eliminate commercial design, we'll eliminate all that just for all of our people, which I think is a great idea. But it's gonna be a little bit more cross-referencing into commercial design standards to make sure that what is in that commercial design standards and the site plan is gotta be inside of that parking ordinance. For this portion, and we do put this on the board public hearing for change we need to do. I think the urgency for that on the board. Probably good. That and the 10% of that.
Yeah, right. So I'm looking at the 10%. So if we're saying you have to have 200 acres, is that what you said? For an RV park? 20 acres, okay.
10% of that can be
Gotcha.
for cabins.
Well, the way this one reads is you can only do.
You can do 10% of the rental space, right.
I did the map on that.
280.
Yeah, 280 parking spots. It would be very difficult by the time we get it. Some of these, there's buildings, and then we have to pay for that.
Right.
So, but still, we got plenty of zero.
And if you have 280 and then we're saying 10% of that can be RV rental, that's 28. That's, yeah, I think
How
so.
we came up with that number is we figured probably how many sites they had, and we went backwards, but we didn't get the total acreage.
Right.
That's what I'm saying was that program.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not sure that 10% is the right number now that we're looking at that in this manner.
Yeah, well, I think we get it a little tighter now, then it's a couple more months, or 3 months, or whatever it takes to get to that point. We would go down, and we divide it up, you change the number. if you drop
So we can drop that.
7.5 unit per acre,
Then that solves that other, yeah.
You're gonna solve either direction.
Yeah, so I think that 14 really should be probably 7.5.
Yeah, that's gonna make your.
Because you,
40-foot wide units almost.
right, Okay. Mhm.
Like I said, I'm learning a lot based on the one that's paid bill right now. Unfortunately, that's the way it's happening. But I don't think that it's being built on that. I don't know what that like. Maybe it's not, but we're doing a good job on that. And we're following the last journal seems to be really.
He has done everything that we've asked him.
Okay.
So at least they're going to be approved. So we're just doing it.
Right.
You got really making it go wide. Come up with that, and he's want to do it, so he's still doing it. And I think we can do that probably with the roads that can be built by hand.
Well, I'd like to get this all done before the next RV park, because, and most certainly there's going to be more. We know possibly one, but we've got 4,000 acres of BLM land that is in Tokerville that eventually will be developed.
That's the reason that one was rushed, is because they have to review the motion to be approved pending the work. So
Well, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to ask you if you would put this out for a public hearing, so we can at least amend the ordinance we have, so at least have these protections while we work on the rest of it, and then as somebody comes in, you know, and what we're trying to avoid is having to issue some sort of moratorium. You know what I mean? Because we can only issue a moratorium, it takes council action, and it can go for extra 6 months, and you've got to have the ordinance done. So what we're looking for is if you put this out for a public hearing, that we can at least get this ordinance amended for these 3 specific things. And then we'll work on the other, hopefully we can get it done before we have any others come in and apply. Even if we just have to keep chunking it down version by version, at least every time we know. So we have another one that comes in right now, and this isn't out, we just try to go with what we've already got. So that's what we would ask you tonight, is to give directions to put it out for public hearing. So next time.
Well, I don't see a problem with that, because I mean, obviously everybody's read this, and I mean, there's only a few things you want to change.
Yeah,
Just
those 3.
gob those changes in there and put it on there, and if we don't like it, we amend it later.
Amending the one that
Are you talking about the one from Ivans?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's talking, yeah.
I mean, it's just
I don't know that there's
Yeah,
really
it's pretty
much
good,
in
and we
there
can
that I
just
would
discuss
change.
tents or something, and the next time at least you got something in place.
you mean putting items, incorporating items right now?
Just make your changes right now to it.
But I would rather have you guys do a review of the new draft one before we just throw at you. And you guys go through it.
Well, I've read it, and I mean, I like to have tents, and, you know.
what do you have to
fire.
say about that?
I mean, I'll do whatever you guys.
It's better than what we tried to create it for. Wherever you found that, it's pretty good.
This is what the reason that we're asking for it this way is if we go ahead and we just drop Ivan's entire ordinance into ours, that's gonna have to go through legal review for a very long time.
Well, don't take theirs. This is now Tokerville, so we're gonna make a few tweaks.
Sure, yeah.
We're gonna make a
I
few tweaks.
honestly,
Yeah, that's right. I didn't they use our ordinance.
We're just going, we're adopting it basically, but we're making a few changes.
But we'd also need to incorporate changing the commercial and
It
everything
still has
else.
to go through there. Some of theirs says like, oh, if your frontage is on Highway 91, right? Which yes, we have Highway 91, but Ivan's Highway 91 is way different.
We have all the confidence in the world there and can get it done.
It will still have to go through legal review. You know what I
So
mean?
we need to have the public hearing and changes on our current one now.
Yeah.
But
For those
I
3
also would
items,
really
yeah.
like to see us get this one so we can get it to that point and shove it in there.
Yeah.
Because I saw a lot of holes that this one covers that doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'll have that for you by next month. But I would like to hear what.
So we're gonna have a public hearing on changing this, and then in a month or so, we'll have another public hearing to
I'm
change it
changing
again.
ours with those 3 things you got pointed out.
Yeah, and it will be a 2-month process because I hate to throw stuff pretty fast and have another.
I agree.
At least 2 months.
And outside of legal review, yeah, and
Yeah.
council, everybody take their time to look at it. So if we just amend just these 3 first. And
Push that through.
work on the others.
It makes my job really because just incorporate there. I don't think that's not, I would.
No, but it's,
We want
as
the
I went
changes.
through it, it's fairly easy to make those changes. It's the legal review and all that that we'd have to do.
It's very much formatted like ours.
And also would like to hear your meetings with the other places as well. So I love that you went out and found this and did it, because I think it does really protect us in a lot of
So
areas.
could we change that 14 to 7.5 now then, before the public hearing?
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that
We're
for now.
discussing it right now.
I would say change that at least to 10, down to at least 10, because then that will resolve at least part of the 10%. Because that's just a lot of cabins or whatever.
Daisy, will you have that changed to 10?
Or are you gonna
10
change
per acre. What's
The
that?
density.
10 RVs per acre?
Yeah, 10 units
10.
per acre.
Did you do the math on that? If you're 40 by 80 times 10, that's 800.
It fits. I actually did the math. I think,
Does it fit in the
I
acre?
believe actually it puts on, if I do a 40 by 80, I could put 13
But you got
without any
roads
roadways
and
or
you gotta
anything.
take out roads and everything.
So then you take a road that's 20 feet by, I took an acre's 300 feet wide.
You have a road
So
down
you
both
take it off
sides.
another 6,000. So it definitely fits 10.
You could have 2 RV spots this way and not have a road on each side,
You will have a road on each side because they're pull-throughs. You have to have a road on both sides.
but not all of them are required to be pulled through.
No, they'll have a certain amount that are
Back in.
more, like you say,
We
don't
can
have
change it for
electric or
now.
they're just dry
We
camping.
can just change it for now and then
Yeah.
just put it on the
I would
next.
say 10.
Yeah, let's do 10 on that.
And then if you want to chunk it down to 7.5.
Or the 9.2.
Yeah. Yeah, 7.5.
Everybody needs to drive through Willow Wind and see how you like it. It's a beautiful park, but it's so crowded. I don't know how many calls I told you how many calls they get a month, but they don't, they don't, people crashing each other, but there's nothing the cops can do because it's on private property.
So should we discuss in density, the widths of the spaces and all of those things? Is that
We have a
something-
problem with it.
Okay.
I would say, the next couple, the biggest thing that's in front of us is that say, let's say the previous applicant wants to come in and submit a change. The only thing this change is doing is getting that in line so that can't happen from the permit that was already.
Issue,
Issued. So the only thing that you're trying to do here is to make it to where that you can't get to 54 is where it's at right now. That's the only thing that's gonna do.
Okay.
Stopgap.
And then after that.
Changing that? We know that can't work.
Well, except, I mean, I guess it would work for us. We could change the 5 acres to 20 because he's got more than 20 acres, right? So that would be-
Yeah.
5 acres is what it's
If you change that 5 acres, I'd have to go through it just because I've already had somebody that's gone through this, tried through the process and said 5 acres. just doesn't work.
They don't get enough to make profit to pay for it.
As well. On minimum acreage from 5 acres to 20.
So, you know,
You
So
change
there's
that to
4
20,
changes, Daisy.
and the 14's going to 10,
Yes.
which is
Yeah,
still
14's
too
going to
much. but-
10.
It is.
And what about the 10%?
If we change the 14 to 10, then that,
change the 10, that's gonna change the 10%.
Yeah, changes to 10%.
One number changes the other.
Because the 10% of the 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, is that clear?
All right, Joey, do I need to do anything else?
Really like to stay quiet. Good job.
Yeah, that was. Okay, I'll take a motion. Does anybody else have anything else to say? Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second it.
Vote.
I start from this way every time?
I'll change it
Yeah,
next
always.
time.
No, it's all right. Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
trendsetter.
Aye.
Okay, motion adjourned.
Oh, you see it go both ways.
I'm at 7:15.
And we need to